And welcome to the Township Whitewater Region's regular council meeting for Wednesday, March 5th. It is 1:03 p.m. and we're calling ourselves to order. The next item on our agenda is our national anthem. If I get you to stand and face the flag, please. Excellent. Next item is our land acknowledgement, and I'm going to ask Councillor Tabbert to give us the land acknowledgement, please.
As we gather, we would like to acknowledge on behalf of the Township of Whitewater Region and their community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of Indigenous people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years.
Good, thank you. Next item is the adoption of our agenda, and the recommendation is the Council of Township Whitewater Region approve the March 5th, 2025 agenda. A mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Olmsted. Any changes needed on the agenda as presented by the clerk? Good, I see none. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. Next is the adoption of some minutes. First, there's closed session minutes from February 5th and February 13th, and regular session minutes from February 19th. The recommendation is the Council of Township Whitewater Region approve the closed session minutes of February 5th and February 13th, 2025, and the regular session minutes of February 19th, 2025, understanding that the closed session minutes remain confidential. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Trim and Councillor Tabbert. Any errors or omissions that need to be noted in the enclosed minutes? Okay, I see none, and we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. Good. Excellent. And the next one that we have in our attached committees and boards minutes, we have two sets of minutes from the Muskrat Watershed Council, January 16th and February 20th. And again, I'll ask our municipal rep for this Muskrat Watershed Council if she has anything she wants to bring up as a result of those 2 minutes.
I have nothing to bring up at this time.
Perfect. You're putting all the pressure on our speaker to make sure that all of those issues are raised by him. Good. Okay. Is there any other questions from any other member of council in any of those minutes that are presented from Muskrat Watershed Council? Good. I see none. Next item is disclosures of interest for any of the items presented in our agenda today. Is there anyone who needs to make notice of disclosure? Good, I see none. That leads us into our presentations. And we have a presentation today from Mr. Dave Thomassin. Did I say that right? Oh, I struggle with it sometimes. Mr. Dave Thomassin. He is representing Muskrat Watershed Council. And just before he starts, I'm going to see, would Councillor Tabbert want to give a brief introduction?
Dave is the Director of Science and Water Quality for the Muskrat Watershed Council. He is a Muskrat Lake waterfront resident and has lived in the Ottawa Valley since 2008. He enjoys spending his days on Muskrat Lake researching and learning about the watershed's dynamic ecosystems and volunteering with the Muskrat Water Council, which he has done since 2017.
Excellent. And with that, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Friends, council, nice to see you all again. A lot of familiar faces around this table. A lot of you sat with us at the Muskrat Watershed table, and some of you hopefully will come join us in the coming years. One big milestone this year is our 10-year anniversary. Actually, last year was our 10-year anniversary. The council started in 2014, and we still have actually 3 of these original members still with us, and still strong volunteers of the council. That's why we've seen so many of you come through the table, especially councillors that's been around here for many years. From our early days, we're a small nonprofit organization and a registered charity. We've grown to a crucial organization making real impact on Muskrat Watershed. As you guys may know, Muskrat Watershed is quite large. It's probably one of the largest watershed in our region, and then it extends inside 5 different townships, which Whitewater region is one of them. Whitewater region is the 2nd largest township that we embody, and then Laurentian Valley is the largest, and then Adams and Bromley kind of falls, and then the other ones kind of falling behind that. So over the past decade, we've engaged in community outreach, partnered with local organizations, secured funding through support for environmental initiative. Some key achievements includes the water quality improvement in collaboration with Algonquin College, the Ministry of Environment, has monitored 24 to 28 sites annually. Thanks to the water testing and the equipment that we've been getting better clarity on oxygen level within our lakes and our watershed generally. Most of our testing is done on different drains that drains into the watershed, and we monitor from those drains instead of going down every single creek. It kind of gives us a bigger picture. So tree planting and shoreline restoration in 2023 alone for so I'm reading off the 2024 newsletter, so that's why 2023. This year we don't have as impressive number because we didn't do any tree planting, but last year we did 4,000 trees, and shrubs are planted to stabilize shoreline, reduce nutrient runoff, and create wildlife habitat. And all these plantings last year happened in Whitewater region. Farm Stewardship Initiative, we partner with Eastern Ontario Farm Stewardship Collaborative to support farmers and livestock in doing livestock fencing, wetland restoration, erosion control projects to enhance our watershed health. And then we did different educational community engagements, from hosting school programs on benthic invertebrates, working with Algonquin College students on turtle nesting boxes, and then fostering different environmental stewardship activities. The success wouldn't be possible without our dedicated volunteers and partners like yourself. I'm going to deviate from my script a bit to say that we really appreciate all the support Whitewater region has given us. There's 2 townships actively always engaged with us, which is your township and then Laurentian Valley, or Laurentian Valley. I always get confused. That's actively engaged with us and actively helping us and attend regular meetings every month. And we really do appreciate your commitments and having Connie come on board and assist us this year. Every year we try to recognize a volunteer. That's kind of been our initiative in the past, I would say last 5 years, and kind of like show that we support our volunteers and we recognize them. This year we decided to recognize Barbara Green, which is our volunteer of the year, who has given over 10 years of service. So ever since the Muskrat Watershed started, she's been one of our volunteers, and right now she's acting as our secretary. And she's also a lake resident on Muskrat Lake, and not resident, I'm sorry. She's an Ottawa resident, but has a cottage on Muskrat Lake and has been here for decades. Looking ahead, and where we need more of your assistance, is we need more volunteers to continue different water testing and shoreline restoration efforts. If any volunteers are interested, we can provide training, and then that help would kind of lead to a longer lasting impact. I'd like to thank everyone from the community or from the township that's contributed to the Muskrat Watershed journey. I'd like to thank them all for doing so, and we're looking forward to keep protecting the Muskrat watershed. Any questions?
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for everything you do.
Thanks.
Excellent. We'll open it up to questions. Is there any questions from members of council? Councillor Trim.
Yes, thanks very much for that report, and I echo the mayor's sentiments. I know that it took probably 150 years for the lake to degrade to where it is today, and I'm just wondering and I know it's going to take an awful long time to get it back to what we would like to see the lake water to be. I'm just wondering if with all of this work, volunteer work and study, do you see any movement in that direction?
So it's a bit of a tough question, a bit loaded of a question too. It is going to take a long time to see a long-lasting impact for sure. What we're seeing now and what we've seen in the past few years is that we're seeing a lot of change in the environment and a lot of change in what's happening around the watershed, change in temperatures, change in seasonal kind of patterns. Last year is one of the first year where we did not get blue-green algae blooms. Again, we had a lot of precipitation last year. We had a lot of wind. Can we contribute that to the work we did? Probably not. It's probably more due to the wind changes and, the high rain amount that we had last year. The year previous, we had a whole lot of blue-green algae outbreaks. And again, it was a warmer year than normal, with a lot less precipitation. If you all remember, there was forest fires all across Ontario. So those are kind of the factors that we can't control, and really they happen to change every year. So we can't say based on that. What we do know is what we measure constantly, and what we're measuring constantly is, different oxygen levels. We're measuring for, the amount of green algae that's inside the water. I'm trying to find the way that I can explain it simple without over-sciencing it. So we look at that as indicators, and mainly at Cobden Beach, and because we've been working really hard on restoring the beach and making the beach as beautiful as it used to be when, a lot of you were a lot younger and swimming at that beach. And again, I can't contribute solely at everything we've done, but in the past few years, we've seen a lot less E. coli activity going on there. And it's kind of easier to conclude that, well, because of, the addition of the bubblers, us cleaning up the beach shore, or with the help of the township and your summer students doing all the cleanups, which I must say is a wonderful job your summer students have been doing there. It's been really clean the past few years. So thanks town staff for making that happen. And, we're seeing massive improvement. Again, temperature and those influences has a big impact on all that, but it's kind of goes hand in hand saying, well, if we're seeing good data coming out of the beach, we're seeing good things happening there, well, maybe what we're doing is good. Tree planting, we planted so many trees since we started the Trillium grant, 150,000 trees planting around all of Muskrat watershed. It's a whole lot of trees, and we're hoping to see that impact coming out. Since COVID kind of came, we kind of stopped measuring what's coming out from the Snake River. We'd like to get back in measuring inside the Snake River, and this is why we need volunteers to know exactly what's coming out of there compared to what we used to have on the previous 7 years of data that we used to have. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you. That's perfect. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Tabbert.
When I was appointed to sit on the Muskrat Watershed Council, my first thing was, oh my God, it's going to be so boring. I have to admit that was my thought. And it's actually quite interesting. I'm actually disappointed that there's not more people who attend these meetings who live within the watershed. And more volunteers who go and who come and help. I know we do have volunteers, but we need more, and it's a wonderful group. They do so much, and it's so interesting. I mean, who ever heard of putting a bat box up before? I didn't, and I just love it. So that's just one example for me. I don't live on the water, but being appointed by Mayor Nicholson, I was just like, But I've come to learn as a counselor over the last 2.5-3 years that there's more interesting things going on than I thought. I mean, when you get appointed to some of these boards and committees, you're like, eek. But I've learned so much, and I appreciate that he has done that and not just made me sit on the sidelines. So yes, I hope we see more volunteers at the Muskrat Watershed Council. The meetings are the last Thursday of the third Thursday of each month, and they're in the basement of this hall at 6:30 p.m. And they're not long meetings, I can tell you that. They're short and to the point. So that's all I need to say.
Thanks, Councillor Tappert. And you heard it here first. They're not boring meetings. And I also
Well, I like to think we keep it entertaining, not just, and we did, at one time, these used to be huge drawn out meetings, and we did kind of narrow that down where we just talk strictly business, and it's kind of like here, right? We kind of present our items before, people have a chance to react, and then we just talk about the quick bullet points instead of reading through a whole report that is boring for many of us.
Excellent. That's good. Good. Is there any other questions? No, I just have, I have two. I usually, yeah. So the trees. So it really intrigues me. 150,000 trees with Trillium, 4,000 trees last year, or 2023. Have you partnered with Renfrew County Forester at all for that?
We have not. Our partner has mainly been through Trillium grant, was all Watershed Canada. And for the 4,000 trees was with Algonquin College, and using the students there to do the different projects. Volunteers, like Connie just said, or sorry, Councillor Tappert, I forget, I'm in council, I have to be polite. So our volunteers are a real big problem. We have people that's been with us for years and years and years, has been doing absolutely everything. And then the issue lays that we're trying to bring people in, but it's hard getting people engaged to help out. And we're kind of running the point where our volunteer base is getting a bit older. They can't come out and do what they used to go do at one time. Or someone like myself is engaged with full-time work, where I can't come out and do different projects. So we've been relying on different partners. As Algonquin College was for the 4,000 trees. With the help of their students, they came out, I think it was about 30 students that came out and did the planting that year through their environmental stewardship class that they were taking at the school, which I do intimately know well, that class, because I'm a bit involved with it. So, and every year as kind of being involved with that class has been kind of my target to bring projects inside Whitewater region. Last year was a bit different. We looked at the, I always say it wrong, it's not the landfill, but we looked at, we looked at the landfill and using drone technology to see if we can measure the amount of waste being accumulated and stuff like that. And I know we did one other project, I'm trying to remember, a biodiversity survey over at the Westmeath Provincial Park. Those are the two projects that we did in the watershed. That was not in the newsletter I'm presenting today, but that's what we did last summer, last fall with the college students. And next year, I'm hoping to find other projects with the help of your environmental team and your town staff to find different projects to do in the watershed, but in this township to try to promote better health for our watershed.
Excellent. Good. CAO, is there anything you wanted to add to that, or you're good?
I was just going to express thanks to Dave for attending, but also just note two things for the members of council, so that in our annual budget, we do allocate a grant to the Muskrat Watershed Council of $5,500, just so the public watching there, they're aware of that. And then secondly, the Muskrat Watershed Council was originally created as a result of our official plan. So the official plan and the development around Muskrat Lake was one of the reasons, perhaps I could say, for the creation of the Muskrat Watershed Council. So I could share those policies with members of council so that you're aware of how the Muskrat Watershed Council contributes to future development in our community, and how it enables us to be able to develop, continue to develop around Muskrat Lake housing and the like. So thanks so much.
Good. And just stresses the importance of everything you do in the community. So speaking about outreach, and I know you're connected with staff already. If you have a social media campaign for recruiting volunteers, speaking to the local schools or the high school, please let us know if we can help with that and make connections there. I'm also willing to write letters to the other municipalities if you would like to see them get more involved and ask them to participate more, whether that's an appointment by council or staff to the Muskrat Watershed Council to remain part of it. If that's something that you'd like, please let us know, and I'm sure the clerk can help facilitate a letter
Sure.
to seek them to also participate. And I think I will connect you with the county forester.
Okay.
Lacey Rose is her name. She's actually, we're booking her to come see council, right?
Next week, I think.
Next council meeting. They're replanting at the Beachburg Tract. She's ordering a number of trees, and I see there may be a synergy between your organization and hers.
For sure. Thank
If
you.
there's some possibilities there. Does that trigger any other comments or thoughts from members of council? No, with that, thank you so much for taking the time to come and brief council and the public today. We appreciate that and everything that you and your organization do for our community. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks. Excellent. And our next item on the agenda is 6.2, and it is a public meeting. So for those members of the community that are watching, we're going to pause our regular council meeting at this point, and we're going to call to order a public meeting at 1:24 p.m. to hear comments and receive information from the public regarding a proposed zoning application to amend the Township of Whitewater Region's zoning bylaw in accordance with the Planning Act. Good. And I will make a note that later on in our regular council meeting agenda, there will be a motion that is included in the report section that we will then discuss and vote on the zoning application. Good. And with that, I will hand it over to our planner. Alex is joining us virtually, so you'll see him come up on our screens. Thank you. And Alex, over to you.
Hear me? Yep. Okay, cool. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So I have a bit of a preamble here before I present my report. So if any person or public body does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Whitewater Region before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region to the Ontario Land Tribunal. The person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there is reasonable grounds to do so. Under Section 3411 of the Planning Act, if council decides to refuse an application or refuses or neglects to make a decision on an application within 120 days of the municipal clerk receiving the application, the applicant or the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing may appeal to the tribunal by filing an appeal with the clerk of the municipality. Section 3419 of the Planning Act states that not later than 20 days after giving of notice of passing of the bylaw, the applicant or any person or body public body who made an oral submission at the public meeting or made a written submission to council before the bylaw was passed, or the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing may appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal by filing an appeal with the clerk of the municipality. So that is my preamble.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes. Can I move on to my report?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, so this report the application that's presented here is an application for a zoning bylaw amendment. The application was submitted by Jane and Kevin White for the properties described, known municipally as 1539 Hawthorne Road and 1878 Pleasant Valley Road. The purpose and effect of the application is to rezone the retained lands, which are known as 1878 Pleasant Valley Road, from agriculture to agriculture exception 76, with the intent to restrict future residential development on those lands to conserve the lands for agricultural purposes, as well as to rezone 1539 Hawthorne Road from agriculture to agriculture exception 78, which is will be to reduce the minimum lot frontage to 39 meters. So this application was submitted in order to satisfy in part the conditions outlined in their previously approved consent file D10-243, which was heard on November 21st of 2024. So when considering this application, I always review three primary documents. The first one being the provincial policy statement. The provincial policy statement, the provincial planning statement encourages the development of healthy, integrated and viable rural communities through an agricultural systems approach. A main component of which is maintaining a geographically contiguous agricultural land base, as well as fostering the long-term economic prosperity of the agricultural food network. And the agricultural policy, specifically in the PPS, require that when a farm dwelling is severed for the purposes of farm consolidation, that the retained lands be restricted from future residential uses. So this is, in fact, what the original severance application was to remove the additional dwelling. So this application would seek to bring the lands into compliance with the PPS. The county's official plan designates the land as agriculture. This designation is designed to maintain the predominant use of the land as agricultural, but can include residences and related structures to support farming operations. The county's agricultural policies echo that of the PPS, in that when severing off a surplus dwelling from a farm, the retained lands should be restricted from future residential uses. So as already mentioned, this application will bring that the lands into compliance. And the official plan also outlines that it is up to the Lower Two municipality or the township to determine its own frontage requirements for lots through a zoning bylaw, which brings me to the next document, which is the township's comprehensive zoning bylaw. So under the zoning bylaw, these lands are zoned agricultural. We're seeking to change that. There is no provision in the zoning bylaw to restrict agricultural uses after a severance. However, we are following the policies of the PPS and the OP on that. The zoning bylaw, though, does outline that the minimum lot frontage for a lot in an agricultural area is a minimum of 45 meters. And so the present application is seeking to reduce that to 39 meters. So the planning rationale here is this application is 100% seeking to bring the lands into conformity with all the policy documents that we work with through the planning process. So if approved, the amendment will regularize the road frontage for the portion of for the severed lands, and will also protect the agricultural land base on the retained lands. So it's my recommendation to council that they approve the zoning bylaw amendment. This application does align with the township's strategic plan, as well as the Community Development Department's work plan, which is to support the continued growth and development of the township. The present application was circulated in accordance with the Planning Act, and at the time of writing, no comments had been received. In terms of financial implications for the municipality, following the completion of the severances, the separate properties may be reevaluated by MPAC, which could result in higher higher tax revenues for the township. And the next steps would be to, if the the motion is passed, is to issue a notice of decision, I guess either way, actually, is to issue a notice of decision and to allow the appeal period to commence. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, planner. I'm going to now ask the clerk and the planner, maybe between the two of you, is there anybody that's registered to speak at this public meeting about this zoning amendment application?
I received none.
And planner?
No, I have not received any requests.
Excellent. And then I will ask, was there any submissions in writing made to either one of you with respect to this application?
Again, I received none.
And I received none.
Okay, so there's no response from the public. So now I'll turn it over to council. Is there any general questions, understanding that we will formally debate this at item 9.4, but from a public meeting perspective, is there any questions or concerns that you'd like to represent on behalf of members of the public with respect to this application? And I'll go to Councillor Moore first.
Actually, I have two. With all the subdividing that seems to be going on there, where do we stand with culvert access? Because there's a lot of water runoff in the spring there. And with the approval of this severed property, will the owner then be able to build outbuildings such as farm buildings on the said property?
On the severed portion.
10-4.
Okay, so good. I'll turn that back to the planner. Can you respond to culvert access and outbuildings on the severed parcel?
So the severed, thank you for the question. The severed lands, there shouldn't be an issue with the culvert because the access already exists. So if there was an issue with the culvert, we would be aware of it at this time. But there was nothing mentioned, nothing has been mentioned to me by the applicant or the resident who lives at the residence there. In terms of, in your question, oh, sorry, does that satisfy your question there?
Councillor Moore?
Yeah, and will they be able to further build farm buildings on this property? Or is it strictly, on the severed parcel, strictly going to be residential? It doesn't affect the larger
It will be-
parcel?
Yeah, so the zoning bylaw would prevent them from, like at the moment, if the only permitted use under the zoning bylaw for a lot that size would be residential uses. So if they wanted to put additional agricultural buildings on there for agricultural purposes, then they would have to actually get a zoning bylaw amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Good, clear. And I see Councillor Tabbert.
I'm confused here. When I look at the map,
Yes.
okay, it says 1539 Hawthorne and 1878 Pleasant Valley Road. But when I look at the map, it goes from Hawthorne to Canola. And because I know what property we're talking about, I'm totally confused as to why the map is showing property on Canola, along Canola, and not between Pleasant Valley and Hawthorne. It totally confused me. That's why I have no idea which we're talking about here. If you look at that map there, it's Canola Road and Hawthorne, and we're talking Pleasant Valley to Hawthorne. So it really confused me when I was trying to figure it out.
So just for the matter of the public here,
Board
just to situate everybody who might be watching this video too, clerk, can we pull up Google Maps of the area just so that the road names are clear?
So that, and I'll also point out the general location map, so the upper map on the attachment to the report. I'm just seeing now that I had placed the arrow incorrectly. It should be actually on the next block over. The lower map, the key map, it shows the actual block of land. So my apologies on that.
Just because I want the public to make sure that it's clear, can we just shrink that a little bit so you see the intersection of Desjardins and... Okay, so the property is clearly between Desjardins.
Yeah, so the property, well, originally went from Pleasant Valley all the way through to Hawthorne and bordered Desjardins there.
Yes.
To the north. And now it's so the Hawthorne, or pardon me, the Pleasant Valley still goes through all the way to Hawthorne, I believe, but the new lands, the new severance on Hawthorne is only on Hawthorne.
Yeah, so just to be clear, it's just a severed parcel. Its access will be on Hawthorne.
Yeah, my
The
apologies.
complete property we're talking about is neighbored by Pleasant, Desjardins, and Hawthorne. So the report is incorrect. That arrow is in the wrong block. Good, does that help?
Yeah.
And good, because the public might have had that question, so thank you very much, Councillor Cabot.
Yeah, no, that's what, it's totally confused me, because I know the property, and I'm just like, well, we're talking two different properties, so, thank you. That's okay, it's fine.
Apologies.
Part of the reason we have these meetings.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you, Clerk, for bringing that up. Good. Any other members of council that wishes to raise an issue from any of the residents you may have been engaged with? Good. And just, I will make a final call if there's anyone who wants to make public comment on this. Okay, I see none. So now that we've received all the public input with respect to this zoning bylaw amendment, we will now adjourn our public meeting at 1:39 p.m. And that concludes our discussion at 6.2. Good. Next, we will move on to item number 7 on our agenda. And thank you, planner. We appreciate that. And I know you're going to hang out for the next piece. Yes. Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is number 7, which is our mayor's address. And I just have to pull it up. Okay, good. It gets buried very quickly in the emails. Excellent. So, since our last council meeting on February 19th, I attended 8 meetings and events on behalf of council. We also had a county council meeting as well as a Renfrew County and District Health Unit board meeting. So I would like to highlight a couple of those events for council and our residents. First off, congratulations to our new Member of Provincial Parliament-elect, Billy Deneau. We have worked very closely with MPP-elect Deneau in the past as a member of our prior council, and look forward to working with him on our Whitewater region opportunities. So and we eagerly anticipate things start moving again so we can continue advocating on behalf of Whitewater region. The second point I wanted to raise is just the fact that the U.S. has implemented tariffs on a number of Canadian exports. There will be an impact. You've heard this both federally and provincially, and I'll let those experts speak to that in more detail. But we know there will be an impact both on our businesses and our residents. From a township perspective, we are working with the County of Renfrew for a Buy Canadian municipal procurement opportunities, and are supporting a Buy Local campaign. There's a draft resolution that has been distributed for members of council. It will come back to council formally at our next council meeting. There are constraints with respect to Buy Local from a municipal perspective and what we might be directed by the province or with respect to treaties, other trade treaties that might exist. So there'll be some detail that'll come out through staff on that. And I would encourage any of our businesses that are impacted to help share the details of that impact, not only with township staff, but also with the County of Renfrew Economic Development Office to help shape potential responses that might have to occur locally. So it's going to have to be a communication effort back up for us to really appreciate what those impacts are. Similar to the last council meeting, I also wanted to recognize the efforts of our community organizations over the past 2 weeks. We've had the WDRA Winter Carnival, the Legion Wing Night, a Whitewater Seniors Cooking Class that I missed. I heard it was really good. St. Andrew's Soup Lunch, just to name a couple. And again, it's great to have these activities here in our own backyard, and thanks to all the volunteers that put this together and give our community members a chance to get out and enjoy February and early March. Okay, lastly, I would like to recognize 2 of our residents who have received the King Charles III Coronation Medal from our Member of Parliament, Cheryl Gallant, this past Monday. This medal celebrates the coronation of our King through recognizing remarkable achievements of individuals who've made lasting impacts on our community. Of the limited number awarded in Canada, Whitewater region was fortunate to have 2 residents bestowed with this honor, and here are the extracts from that award ceremony. First member was Joe Kowalski, a true champion of the outdoors and a deserving recipient of the King Charles III Coronation Medal. While many in our community share a love for nature, Joe stands out for his tireless efforts to promote the wilderness and weave it into the fabric of Renfrew County's tourism industry. As the pioneer of whitewater rafting on the Ottawa River and owner of Wilderness Tours, he has dedicated himself to showcasing and preserving the stunning natural beauty of the Ottawa Valley. His passion and hard work have not only enriched our region, but inspired countless others to cherish the great outdoors. And the second member, Evelyn St. Amour, in recognition of her outstanding community service across a variety of organizations, one of which is the Muskrat Watershed Council that we just heard of today. With a passion for conservation, Evelyn has dedicated her time and efforts to groups such as horticultural societies, the Ottawa River Keepers, and local historical organizations. Her unwavering devotion to preserving the natural beauty of the Ottawa Valley, often described as our region's crown jewel, has made her an integral part of the Valley's community of volunteers. Evelyn's deep care for her community and the environment makes her a truly deserving recipient of this honor. So I just want to publicly recognize the two members of our community amongst the 30 members of the county that were selected for this award. So congratulations to both Joe and Evelyn. Well deserved, and it's great to see them get recognition for what they do for our community. We are going to follow it up with some nice photos and some social media posts. We're just waiting for those official photos to get released, and you'll see it come across on social media. And that ends my mayor's report. Is there any questions or comments from members of council? Good. Seeing none, we'll keep moving. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Clerk, has there been any public comments provided for items under our agenda today?
I received none.
Thank you. And next is we're on to reports. Our first report is a property tax adjustment policy for damaged and substantially unusable properties. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township Whitewater Region approve the proposed policy property tax adjustments, Section 357, 1D, Roman numeral 2, damaged and substantially unusable for property tax adjustments under Section 357 of the Ontario Municipal Act 2001 as presented. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Olmsted and seconded by Councillor Moore. And somebody gets to explain all of these numbers to us, so please.
Okay, so what it means, a structure that has been damaged and has become unusable but was not completely destroyed. So let's take a structure fire, for example. The fire does not burn the house to the ground, but the smoke and water damage has made it so the family cannot live there anymore. They've been displaced. In the past, what has happened is MPAC would send us the amount of the assessment in the form of a write-off. Now they only send the value of the structure. So for example, in the past, they would send a notice that the property assessment was $500,000, this is an example, and because of the damage is now assessed at $100,000. Moving forward, what they will do is just send us a notice that says the structure is worth $400,000, and they won't reduce that on their end. And it's up to us as the municipality to decide on what that tax deduction will be. So in this policy, we're proposing that it'll be a 75% of that substantially unusable assessment that will be written off, and the property owner will receive a deduction on their property tax. A write-off bill will then be sent to the property owner once it's been approved. The decrease in tax will be for no more than a 2-year period, kind of like our building permits, at which point the property owner would have to file for a request for reconsideration with MPAC. And that's it. If anybody has any questions on that first one.
Excellent, thank you. And just so people that were listening, that was our Deputy Treasurer, Julie Parr. Thank you for boiling that down to just exactly what we needed. So, members of council, I'm going to start with our mover, Councillor Olmsted.
Oh, clear as day. No questions. Thank you.
Excellent, good. And our seconder was Councillor Moore.
Nothing, thank you.
Good. Any other member of council? Any questions or concerns? Yes, Councillor Trim.
Well, I'm just wondering, how often does this typically happen? Is it something that is fairly regular? How is it going to impact our budget, if any? you know, what's the impact for us? Or is it just that we're doing something that MPAC was doing before and it's just falling onto us now?
Yeah, so that's,
Deputy Treasurer, sorry.
yeah, no, sorry, that's basically it. It hasn't changed too much for us that way. Yeah, just pretty much the process, I would say. And for the amount of properties that we get in a year, it really depends. For substantially unusable, like, you can have a flood year where you're gonna have a lot more of those properties. If you don't have flooding, there's a lot less. You know, we don't get a whole lot of natural disasters here in the area. And when it comes to structure fires, I haven't seen too many that haven't been substantially unusable and go through it. They actually usually go through a different section of the 357 where they're destroyed by fire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Good. I just would like, Deputy Treasurer, if we can just confirm one thing for the members of the public. The approval on that decision to make it partially unusable and up to a 75% reduction, what is the authority for that decision making, the decision on that recommendation?
There's a few things that happen first. We make sure that we get a report. So if it's from a structure fire, we would get something from the fire chief. If it's going to be from, say, flooding, then we'll have the building inspector go out. And once he says, yes, you know, they shouldn't be here, then the approval would go through the treasurer and the head of council for finance.
Perfect. So there's no requirement for it to come back to council. It would be treasurer and head of councilor lead for finance. Yeah. Excellent. Good. Doesn't trigger any other questions from other members of council? Excellent. And with that, we'll call for a vote on the item. All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Next item is 9.2. So this is an amendment to our tax and utility collection policies. The recommendation is the Council of the Township Whitewater Region approve the amendments made to the tax billing and collection policy and the utility billing and collection policy. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Olmsted and seconded by Councillor Tabbert. Good. Is this going back to the Deputy Treasurer? Okay, excellent. Floor is yours.
Okay, so there was just a few changes with these ones. So for both the tax and utility, we've added the electronic option for billing. Now that our online billing is almost ready to launch, we're going to be moving bills online, so we decided to add that into the policy. For both the property tax and utility billing, properties that qualify under the section 357 that we just spoke about, they will have penalty turned off in the time that is deemed substantially unusable for that 2-year max, excluding any previous outstanding balances. If they already had an outstanding balance, those would not be excluded from that. For both of them, again, we'll have a one-time per property owner per roll exception for incorrect payment. The reason why we came about with this one is because we had a lot of residents actually call, you know, they've been paying their taxes here for 20 years, and they have a tax and a utility account, and they accidentally paid their utility account instead of their tax account, and the money got to us before that due date. I'm sure you've probably had a phone call or two about those. So we just included to have that one-time exception where we won't charge them interest. And then for just the tax, only another section that we changed was just the mortgage bills section. So it's still the property owner's responsibility to ensure their mortgage company is paying, as mortgage companies don't always keep the office informed for additions and deletions. So we've added that in just so residents know that if we've stamped that your bill says paid by your mortgage company, that they should still double check in case, because sometimes they don't always update us. And that's all the changes for those ones.
Excellent. Thank you. And I'll go to the mover, Councillor Olmsted.
No, I previously read through these, and I think they're great changes to make, and gives people that chance if mistakes were made, then nobody's punished. So I think these are really good changes. Thank you.
Perfect. And Councillor Tabbert, seconder.
Nothing to add.
Perfect. Any other member of council, questions or concerns? No, and I would just echo, I think the one chance, the one get out of jail free card for making an error, I think everybody sometimes will make a mistake once, and I think at least we've delegated that authority to the treasurer. As my memory, yeah, I'm getting the nod from the deputy treasurer to make that call to allow that exception. So good. No, it doesn't trigger any other questions or comments. Good. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. Thank you. Good. Next item is our 2024 Statement of Council Remuneration and Expenses. The recommendation is the Council of Township Whitewater Region receive the 2024 Statement of Council Remuneration and Expenses paid for information purposes. And this mover and a seconder. So moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Trim. Treasurer? Okay.
Thank you. So every year we have to do a reporting, have to prepare a reporting by March 31st for all expenses paid to council as a whole. So you'll see the attachment to the actual report actually goes and lists out each member of council plus the applicable boards that they sit on. So it's been broken out into the honorarium, which is the amount which is paid to them as their salary or wage, which goes through a bylaw that was passed in 2022. It's 2203-1458, or sorry, 1485. That bylaw stipulates what classifies as an expense, what classifies as an honorarium, the benefits, donations, etc. The salaries at that point in time when that bylaw was originally created stated that each year they council would receive the same as staff. Whatever the CPI increase that's passed as a whole for staff wages would be passed on to them throughout that bylaw. That's where the honorarium area comes from. The benefits piece is CPP, EHT, things like that. That's what makes up our benefits. Then you go to the expenses area. That's part of your council education and miscellaneous, so it's your conferences. And then the next portion of that is any expenses related to those conferences, conventions, any other municipal business function, mileage to travel to and from the elected official's home to the municipal office or designated destination, and the approval of all meeting and council meetings. And then lastly is the donations column. So that is the public relations portion that council does where they donate to different willing organizations that request funds from council, and then it's up to their discretion as to which parties receive those funds. Anyways, and that's all there is for that piece for the report. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Treasurer. And I'll go to the Deputy Mayor as the mover first.
No, I have nothing. Thank you very much.
Good. And Councillor Trim, seconder.
No, thank you.
Good. Any other comments from any other member of council? Good. Seeing none, I would just say thank you, Treasurer, for bringing this. I know you're obligated to bring it forward. It's great to be transparent and for the members of our community to see exactly how they're paying members of council in terms of the honorarium, the benefits, the expenses, and the donations. So thank you for that. There's no other questions. I will call for a vote. All those in favor? And carried. Thank you. Good. Next item. And I'll look, the planner is going to come back on screen. Yes? Yep, good. Good. 9.4 is back to the zoning bylaw amendment that we heard earlier in a public meeting. So this is with respect to the Hawthorne Road, Pleasant Valley zoning bylaw amendment. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township Whitewater Region approve a zoning amendment to the parcel that was subject to a severance through consent file D10-243, described as Westmeath Concession 8 EML, part of Lot 15, known municipally as 1539 Hawthorne Road and 1878 Pleasant Valley Road, from agriculture to agriculture exception 76 and agriculture exception 78. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Trim and seconded by Councillor Olmsted. Good. I'm going to turn the floor back to the planner, just in the event that he has anything additional to say. I don't think you need to repeat what was provided at the public meeting, but you're welcome to add any additional comments if you want to before we open it up for questions.
I have no further comment at this time.
Excellent. Thank you. With that, I'll give it to the mover. Councillor Trim, anything from you?
No, thank you.
Good. Councillor Olmsted?
Nothing, thank you.
Good. Any other members of council? Any questions or concerns with respect to the motion on the floor? Good. Seeing none, we will then call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. Thank you, planner. Good. Next item is 9.5, our tender for pavement markings, which is really paint. Yes, okay, good. I'm just making fancy words. Good. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve the award of tender 2025-05 pavement markings to A1 Carp Pavement Marking Limited at a cost of $43,554.30 inclusive of non-refundable HST. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by our Deputy Mayor. And with this, our Manager of Public Works.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a annual tender that we put out for pavement markings and line paintings. This year, in the 2025 budget, we increased the budget item by $10,000 to extend center line marking by 23 kilometers and edge lining by 2 kilometers, and increase stop bars by 44, which would be a total of 113 kilometers of centerline roadway, and will increase the stop bars to 38 and 40 new ones. To note that the township has 179 stop signs. So, and then and the tender was released on January 21st and closed on February 14th with three bids provided. To note, A1 Carp pavement markings was last year's successful bidder, and that staff I recommend awarding to them. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you, and welcome back. Good. Councillor Moore, as our mover, would you have any comments or questions?
Just as this is annual, we have to do this, and the more paving markings we can put out there, hopefully it'll reduce some accidents. Thank you.
Good, and our seconder was the Deputy Mayor.
Nothing at this time. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other comments from members of council? Councillor Trim?
Yes, I've got two, if I may, Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager. Now, this is probably a redundant question, but I just want to confirm that the 179 stop signs are on pavement. I mean, we do have stop signs on gravel roads.
That's correct.
And I wonder if this 179 represents the total in the township or the total on pavement?
I believe the total. That's correct.
Okay, so there would be a less number for paved stop bars.
I believe so. Off record, I think it's about 125 signs, but I can verify that for you.
Oh, okay. Well, it was just so clear in my mind. And the other thing, Mr. Mayor, what is the life expectancy of the paint? Like, how often do we have to do this over? And is some of that happening in this proposal?
Yeah. So we do paint over the existing signs. Typically it lasts a year, depending on the traffic volume. But there is, on stop bars, for example, there's glass beads put down, so it's reflectivity. But it all depends on the volume of traffic where it's down. But typically it's done annual in municipalities.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good. Any other questions from members of council? Okay, I'm going to throw, so I had a question, the stop sign thing triggered me as well, so thank you for that. I appreciate the difference between gravel. And I just wanted to make sure, I'm tracking about 200 kilometers of surface treated roads, and we'll have center line marking on 113 kilometers of that.
That's correct. So there is markings that are in villages that typically don't get marked. With the increase in budget, we are nearing not all the more urban roadways, but we are getting closer.
Excellent. And then the next question was a finance one. So I can't remember what the total number was for. This is a $48,000. Is that correct? Yeah, $48,000. This is an annual requirement. Because it has to be retreated every year. So we've grown the budget to cover just over 50% of our center lane to cover this annually at call it $50,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, so technically it's $40,000 in total, because there's just a portion of it that's going to the building repairs and maintenance portions for the actual parking lots, which are all municipal properties. So this is just for the center lines themselves, the stop bars and the edge markings.
Perfect. And just important for us to appreciate from a council perspective that it's a lot of money for us to do. We're only doing it for a portion of the roadways, which are prioritized based on the analysis of the public works staff, which is an important factor. To go and do the full length of this, it would be almost double that, which is a significant increase in our costs. Good. I think I saw Councillor Moore. Did you have another question?
Just something else came to mind, and I'd ask Lane this. Some of our stop signs at county roads, do they do the blocking, or do we actually do it if we're entering onto a county road from our own paved roads?
Yeah, so any road that the municipality that comes to a county road or a provincial road, it's their intersection, which they maintain the stop signs and the stop bars.
Okay, thank you. Just so the rest of the council understand that.
When I think back to the areas where we receive a lot of complaints, I typically... Sorry, thank you. Yeah, that's good. You're right on the ball. It's good. I think of the concerned areas, the concerned intersections, a lot of those are county, where municipal roads meet county roads. Good. There is one other comment, and I'm just going to re-emphasize it. It came up at county, and it was the reflectivity of the paint, specific, you had mentioned glass beads being enclosed in the paint. And the question that county councillors had for manager of public works or director of public works at county was, how do you measure that reflectivity? Because is it meeting the specs that we are dictating and paying to receive? Can you confirm how that's done locally?
Yeah. So in our tender that we specify that they meet certain specifications that are in the Ontario Traffic Manual. Staff don't test it, but these are companies that are do this for that they're reputable companies that follow it. So, but we do follow up and make sure that all the lines are painted and all stop bars are done.
Any other final questions or comments from members of council? Okay, with that, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. And with that, I'll just, we'll have a quick 5-minute bio break. So it's 2:06 now. If you can please be seated by about 2:11. And with that, Sean? And welcome back to our regular council meeting for Wednesday, March 5th. It is 2:11 and we'll call ourselves back to order. Next item on our agenda is 9.6. This is a contract extension for the Miller Waste Systems curbside waste collection. So, garbage pickup. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township Whitewater Region approve a 1-year extension. That's a year 6, 1 April of 2025 to 31 March 2026, to Miller Waste Services Incorporated at a total cost of $428,571.90, inclusive of non-refundable HST. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Trim. And this is going to our Superintendent Nicholson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the current agreement with Miller Waste for garbage and recycling collection was signed at the end of 2019 for collection between April 1st of 2020 and March 31st of 2025. The contract allows for the provision of 2 additional 1-year extensions based on the, quote, satisfactory performance and continuing competitiveness of pricing and services upon mutual agreement on the terms. So basically what that means is, as long as Miller's agreeable and the township is agreeable, the contract can be extended for up to 2 1-year terms. So the initial 5-year agreement is coming to an end, and therefore staff initiated discussions with Miller in the mid part of 2024 to inquire about if they were willing to extend the contract and for specifically extending the contract during the pre and post extended producer responsibility transition periods. So as you may all be aware, the township will no longer be responsible for recycling starting in July of 2025. And so our questions to Miller were what services they could provide us, understanding that the industry is, their industry as a whole in waste collection has changed pretty dramatically. One thing to note is that our current garbage and recycling contract ends on March 31st of this year, which is 3 months earlier than the start of EPR recycling collection. So it was imperative for us to understand if Miller would be willing to at least extend our existing contract to cover that 3-month period to basically bridge us over until when the extended producer responsibility kicks in. So we also requested that Miller provide us contract pricing for 1 full year for the garbage portion. So this contract is sort of broken up into 2 pieces because of the way EPR is being rolled out mid-year. Miller did provide us with a letter quote back in November for the 2 pricing periods. So for garbage and recycling collection between April and June of this year was at $45,000 per month, $45,072. And then they provided a second portion, which is just garbage collection only from July 1st to March 31st of $25,468 per month, excluding HST. So a couple things to note on this. So under the current contract, the current way they've been billing us, that the garbage portion was 44%, and the recycling collection was 56%. So they had given us just a price total, and then our bills were actually sort of segregated depending on each service. And those 44, 56 was set like that because at the beginning of the contract, there was some things going on where the collection schedules weren't aligned, and essentially the garbage costs were cheaper and the recycling were. The collection schedule has changed, where we have garbage and recycling collection on every single equally. So Miller has said that the trucks are being used equally, therefore the contract cost should be split 50-50. So additionally, so as of July 1st, they've stipulated that the breakdown of the pricing will be as such, will be 50-50. Additionally, Miller has also asked for the total monthly cost beginning on July 1st increases by 13%. And the reason behind this is that the number of stops has increased. So when this when Miller's collection services in the town started in earlier 2019, they had a certain stop count, and there's been quite a bit of growth since then, 13% growth. So Miller has asked for essentially the number of stops to be increased And the number that they've used for this is 407, which was based on some reporting that the township provides for our blue box reporting anyways, as of the end of 2021. So the total price per stop, based on the stop numbers from 2021, pegs the cost in at $14.41 per month for both services. And then once it splits, it would go down to $7.20. So we'd only be paying for garbage collection per stop per month at $7.20. Some other important things to note is that, as we understand it, the collection service provided to residents will remain unchanged. So despite the fact that we're only responsible for garbage and somebody else is responsible for recycling, it's the way the regulation was written, customers are not supposed to see a difference at the curbside. So collection will continue as is on the existing schedule. While I can't say for certain, I think it is possible that they might start to see 2 vehicles, though, come to their house. But nonetheless, they should be collected on the same day as per the schedule that has been in place for a number of years. So staff decided to undertake an exercise to evaluate the various options that were available to us to provide garbage and recycling in 2025 and beyond. And part of this included reaching out to our neighboring municipalities in Renfrew County to determine if the quote that was provided by Miller was of good value to the township. And staff did determine that the quote aligns with the costs that our neighbors are paying. And in fact, ours was sort of on the lower end of the per stop price, which was a great thing to see. So the extension of Miller's contract in 2025, and potentially if we could look into the second year contract into 2026, that would actually allow the township to potentially align our tendering for garbage collection with our neighbors as well. So there's a number of our neighbors have similar contracts for garbage collection coming up in 2026 and 2027. And as we're all kind of facing the same pressures, we may be able to maybe potentially do a big contract altogether. We'll see. But this would align us to be able to do that if we extend with Miller in the spring of 2026 or the spring of 2027. So in 2026 and beyond, staff are recommending that we do investigate whether or not that we could undertake curbside garbage collection services in-house once that stability of the current Miller contract is no longer available. And in-house waste collection program will need to consider things such as vehicle purchase price cost or renting, insurance costs, staffing related requirements, and whether or not we can adjust our schedule to make it a little more efficient, with considerations to the fact that the residents will still be getting recycling collection potentially from a different contractor. So these are all things for us to think about in the next year to 2 years. So as far as the financial implications go, there are no costs over and above what was approved in the 2025 budget, as Miller's letter quote was included in the budget for 2025. So if the 1-year extension is approved, staff will inform Miller immediately and provide them a copy of the resolution. And additionally, staff will identify and begin to evaluate other options to deliver curbside garbage collection in 2026 and beyond. So what we plan to do is we plan to request pricing from Miller for the second 1 year, which is the year 7 from April 1st to March 31st, 2027. As like I said, the per stop price was in line with our neighbors. And again, investigate joint tendering opportunities, and also to investigate the cost of delivery for garbage collection services in-house. So that's everything. Is there any questions?
Thank you so much. And I know that's a very detailed report, but an important one. Just the transition is very complicated. This is a means by which to smooth out some of those complications. So thank you for all the work that's done on that. I'm going to go to our mover first, Councillor Moore.
Yeah, thank you for this report. I think we've discussed this a few times over the last year. 2 Two things, just wondering why the March 31st hasn't been changed to be inclusive of the year for pay period end, meaning year end, as opposed to 3 months in? And will we be getting further information on what's happening July 2nd with recycling?
Yeah, so the first thing to mention about the start of the contract, it's a terrible decision to start a recycling garbage contract on January 1st, because you could be, in reality, starting with a new contractor in the middle of snow, and it's difficult to identify driveways and those sorts of things. So it is generally a good idea to start with a new contractor if you got one through a tender. Once the melts happen, it leads to far fewer missed collections. As far as the start of the transition to extended producer responsibility on July 1st, the news is that there is no news. Collection schedule will remain the same. The only thing that we have to sort of discuss with Circular Materials Ontario, who does that, it will be in relation to the operation of our depot and how that's going to the payment sort of side of things related to collecting waste from industrial, commercial, and institutional properties. So there's some minor details there to be ironed out with them, but as far as we understand, the residents shouldn't see any changes, and it should be service as usual.
Okay, thank you.
Good. And our seconder, Councillor Trim.
Yes, just a comment, Mr. Mayor, if I may. I think it's a really good idea, excuse me, that we do an analysis, as is being suggested, of the different options, including in-house delivery of the service, because quite often I hear in the community that we could get a better deal for water filtration and sewer treatment if we did it ourselves. And so this analysis would settle the question with respect to garbage collection. And so I think it's important to do that, and I'm happy to see that recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent, thank you. Any other members of council? Councillor Tabbert.
If I remember correctly, there are certain businesses and volunteer organizations and churches that will no longer be receiving recycling pickup. Have we worked anything out with this, or where are we at with ensuring that this recycling does not end up in our landfill site?
So that is something that, like, along with the, as I mentioned, at the depot, that staff are working through directly with Miller. With the contractor. So the CMO, the producers, they do allow for, in 2025, for recycling collection to continue co-collection alongside the residential waste, so that the ICI, industrial commercial stuff, can be collected alongside the residential waste, and then the township basically pays back CMO for those costs. So staff are in the process of identifying literally line by line which address is considered commercial industrial and can be provided service in 2025 for that. So the one thing to note is that that allowance by CMO to be able to co-collect is only for businesses that were already receiving recycling collection from the township. If there is a new business coming in under a new address, new location, they wouldn't be eligible for collection. If it was a business at a location, the business leaves, a new business comes into the same location, they will be eligible for collection. 2026, when full transition's completed, Circular Materials Ontario will not allow that anymore. And that is the next step for staff and council to figure out what we want to do as far as, are we going to offer curbside collection or only depot collection? And these are some of the questions that we were in the survey that we sent out to our neighbors to ask them what they're doing to try and align our plans potentially with them, whether it be through tendering or just that we're all on the same page for expectations. So from that perspective, we are working on it for 2026 currently, and 2025, as we understand it, there should be no, there hopefully will be no hiccups, but we'll see.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm going to follow on to that question, just on Councillor Tabert's question. The additional cost that CMO is going to charge back for business recycling collected in 2025, that will come back to council to determine where that funding is going to come, how it will be collected?
So that was something that staff estimated as part of the 2025 budget. And essentially what we understand it to be is that it is the tonnage, the disposal cost. So the estimate that we made, it's a proportion of the total stops. So we know there's about 200 stops. And we know what the tipping fee is going to be. So we know what those costs are, and they were built into the budget for the recycling line this year. I'm sure we can come back to council with that estimate, and it's a known estimate. Again, it's the number of stops times the rate that CMO has told us it will be. So we can provide that back to council pretty easily. If you
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Olmsted.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And I don't expect an answer now, just some history. Do we know what years we started curbside collection for both recycling, and I think waste came after that, if I'm not mistaken? If you know that, go ahead, but I'm just looking for maybe some numbers down the road.
Sure, we can look into that. I know the way the regulation was from 92 or 96, when if you met the threshold of 5,000 residents, you were required to provide curbside collection for recycling. So you perhaps would know better, but I can look into it when we hit that threshold and start it off.
Yeah, I think if my memory serves correctly, we did have a recycling program, and then in about 2015, 2016, around there, I think we started the waste side. I don't think we had both going at the same time early on. I think it was just recycling.
So the changes to the garbage collection were going from the paid yellow bags in 2018, 2019 to the two free. So while curbside was always provided, it was you paid per bag, where now it's included as the user fee.
Right, and you answered part of my second question was, is there a provincial requirement, and like what does that standard look like?
Yes.
For both?
I'm not sure that there is one for garbage collection, to be honest, but for recycling in the regulation, it does state that the threshold's 5,000 for curbside collection.
Right, for recycling?
For recycling,
right.
Yeah. So we're past that.
Right, yeah, if you could at some point just maybe look at the waste side as well, please. Yep. Thank you.
And Councillor Trim.
Yes, I just thought of this. I understand that with respect to recycling, there will be an increase in the types of items that will be allowed, and I'm just wondering how the community will know about that. Thank you.
So one of the things that we literally just received it today is that Circular Materials Ontario has responded to us that they're going to continue to fund their promotion and education campaign. So this year, the township released our recycling schedule, garbage and recycling schedule, that included recycling from July on. And we will actually get a payment from them, from CMO, to continue that, the promotion and education. And part of that includes the sorting guide. So on the inside, you'll note of our schedule, it shows all the things that can be recycled and all the things that should go in your garbage. And my understanding is that Circular Materials Ontario will provide that information to us to include in our mail out. And we will actually be funded for that in the amount of, I think it's 44 cents per house is what they will pay us to sort of piggyback on our schedule. And the expansion of the program of what will be collected, from what I've heard, isn't expected to be started to roll out until 2026 and beyond. So while they don't have an exact schedule, we won't start seeing those changes until a couple of years into the full transition, is what we've been told.
Excellent. Any other questions from members of council? Okay, I wrote down a couple. First of all, I just found it interesting to note that for waste, we're charged by the pickup point. So I hear this often, we can just add more houses on the road, the garbage truck's going by anyway, but they will eventually charge us for those additional stops. So I'll just make public note of that. The other comments or questions are really related to the next steps portion. And these are my requests, and I look for council. If you don't agree with what I might be asking, then you need to speak up. The decision point, like there's a lot of work involved with those 3 steps in the next steps. This contract will end 31 March 2026 if we vote it in. When will be the decision point that we need to make the decision on the 3 options, whether we extend the current, joint tender, or do it ourselves? When do we need to make that decision so it's good to go live for 1 April 2026? So that's one thing that we need to be able to answer. Otherwise, we're just going to, is that even achievable, etc.? So if you can look at that one. And the same thing for the 2026 change that you mentioned for CMO, where they will no longer pick up from those 200 stops, the religious institutions, the volunteer organizations, the municipal stops. When is the decision point that we'll need to put in place with respect to making that decision so it can be implemented on the go live date? And the last one has to do with in the next steps, item number 3, where we investigate the cost to deliver curbside garbage collections in-house. I'd like to, I open it to debate, but I think we need to think more than just in-house. I think it would be a regional partnership from those groups that may, I don't know how it will pencil out for us to buy our own garbage truck and do X number of stops, and then the neighbor does the same thing, and there may be it may be more regional, the solution, in terms of making the cost as low as possible for the resident. So I would encourage the recommendation number 3 there to include more regional than just in-house. Good. Does that trigger any other comments or questions from council? Councillor Moore?
Just in your last comment there, just wondering if county has bantered this around to see if everyone in the county could have advantage of a similar idea and maybe we could pick it back on somebody else.
So it hasn't come up at county council, and that's an excellent point. Maybe it needs to. So maybe if I can take that away as an action item, the clerk is keeping me straight here. Maybe if I can talk to the staff and yourself offline, we'll figure out what we want to ask county council and we'll go back to them. Because you're right, maybe at some municipalities, the upper tier does do waste and recycling.
It's a place to start, right?
Good. Excellent. Any other comments or questions from members of council? Okay, so a huge cost, and I mean it's substantial, almost $500,000 for waste pickup for waste for 3 months and recycling and waste for 3 months, recycling for an additional 9 months. Garbage for additional. I screwed that up. But still, $500,000. It's a significant cost, and we have to make every effort to make sure that we're getting the right level of service and we're paying the right amount as a community. Good. If there's no other comments or questions on this item, Councillor Trim.
Well, just on your last comment, you're absolutely right. I agree with you. We have to make sure that we're getting the best value for our dollar. However, if we didn't have a landfill site, those costs would be considerably more. And so I'm looking forward to the report after the survey has been done at our landfill site to see how the strategies that we've introduced recently are working out for us. Because the longer we keep that, have our own landfill site, the more control we'll have over the cost of garbage collection. So just to follow up on your comment, just to remind people, we are one of the very few municipalities left in Ontario with their own landfill site. And they're not making any more, apparently. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good. Oh, Manager of Public Works, yes, please.
Yes, yeah, and next steps, yeah, they're in line with staff. We did, Dan and myself did meet with a few companies for vehicles for waste. We met with 3 companies that are part of the canoe procurement. And our next step is to bring in options to council if it's in-house versus tendering. And then we're also plan to meet with our neighbors to the west, which we are aligning with this contract to determine if we can joint tender with them, and then also with our put a survey to all municipalities in County Renfrew, determine what the cost is and when the contract is, and the plan is to restart our waste management joint. Help me, Deanna.
The group that was formed under the LEG funding previously but there was a specific waste one, and we're going to try and.
And LEG, Local Efficiency Group, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah. So the plan is to open it to all 17 municipalities, and I've tasked Deanna to restart that discussions again.
Excellent, good, and that aligns with the County of Renfrew, if that's something we also want to consider, looking at it from an upper tier perspective. Good, all right, well, this one is a deep, and it's got lots of different layers on it. It is complex, and it is very expensive. So with that, if there's no other questions, we are going to call for the vote on the extension of the specific contract, the year 6 extension to Miller Waste. I'll remind you, it's about $430,000. No final questions or comments. And none from staff? Good, with that, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. Okay, good. Number 9.7, which is our Snow Country lease. So this is the Volunteer Snowmobiler Club, and their lease of a municipal building at 2272 Mindview Road. The recommendation is that the Council of Township Whitewater Region authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an amending agreement with the Snow Country Snowmobile Association to extend the term of the lease agreement at 2272 Mindview Road through to April 30th, 2026. And sorry, I just inserted a word in that resolution. A mover and a seconder, please. So moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Olmsted. And this is going to the CAO?
Yeah, thanks so much. So the report before council is an extension agreement for the lease of the facility that's currently being used by Snow Country. It's 2272 Mindview Road. It's the former Ross Municipal Garage. It's currently across the Mindview Garage that is located on Mindview Road. So back in 2013, council approved the first execution of a lease agreement for 5 years. And then again in 2019, another 5-year agreement was approved, which is set to lapse on April 30th of this year. So we've been in discussions with the organization over the last 6 months to try to negotiate the terms of a new lease. And there's essentially 3 things that we both recognize need to be addressed. One is the current building assessment to ensure safety, the implementation of asset management program to support the facility's continued use, and understanding what the financial implications are of this to maintain the building. So the township did award building condition assessments on February 5th of this year to Dillon Consulting. So these are BCA's building condition assessments for a number of our municipal buildings. And these building condition assessments will help shape our asset management plan and help shape future decisions around our facilities and the maintenance of our facilities moving forward. This facility was not included. However, it is recommended from council that we include this facility to be able to respond to the 3 bullets. One is the assessment of safety, assessment of maintenance program, and the financial implications with that. On that basis, the Snow Country has agreed to a 1-year extension of the lease, and staff are recommending we move forward with adding this component in our existing project. We expect that the cost to do this facility will be between $4,500 and $5,500, which could be funded from the original funding program for the original project. So what will happen is, if this is approved, we'll sign a new agreement with Snow Country. We'll add the scope of work for this facility in the BCA assessment, and we would likely in the next 3 or 4 months have the results of that assessment, and then we'll enter into new discussions with Snow Country on a more longer term lease if the building is safe and they're willing to agree to certain terms. So just looking for council's approval to extend for 1 year, and we'll move forward with the program. Thanks so much.
Excellent. Thank you, CAO. And I will go to my mover first, Councillor Moore.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the 1-year extension or whatever it may be. We'll be anxious to see the report when it comes in for the assessment. So hopefully we can make some decisions then possibly by next fall, late next fall, on how to proceed. Okay, thank you.
And Councillor Olmsted?
Yeah, I just agree with Councillor Moore had said. I guess the question on the assessment, if we need to extend it beyond the current 1 year that we're looking at now, that we won't have to do another assessment, I would assume, correct?
No, so the strategy will be to work in the findings of this currently, the spring assessment of 2025 into a future agreement, yeah. So there'd be no need in the immediate future, not a need to do another assessment, maybe in 5 or years. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of council? Councillor Tabbert.
I just have a minor one here. What's the difference between ground maintenance and yard maintenance?
I would say they may probably pertain to the same thing. The difference between the two is that their yard maintenance, it further references snow plowing for own purposes and grass cutting in around the building, so it greater specifies that. But I would say they're essentially the same thing. However, they're responsible for around their building and we're responsible for the remainder of the lands.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions from members of council? Okay, I just have a couple. So that property at 2272, we use it for some purposes. I imagine Public Works or another department has some access to the property?
Yeah, without going into great detail, we do have another structure on that property where we store potentially equipment or materials. So yeah, we do utilize that for storage, and we also utilize it for summer programming, maintenance programming. You'll often see piles of granular or granular that's being loaded, that's being offloaded there and then repositioned for our DST road. So we use it for operations, but yeah, so that.
Perfect. And the comment I would like to make, I understand that you had said an assessment for safety, sorry, and I'm looking for the exact language in the report. Yeah, sorry, in the analysis, the first bullet is the need for a building assessment to ensure safety. The second bullet is the implementation of an asset management program to support the facility's continued use. And the financial implications for maintaining the building in good working order. So I would stress, I'm prepared to do a first one, make sure that the building's safe. But I don't know, given our asset management plan, I find it difficult to justify in any way, shape, in the future, any funds going to a building that we don't need, that we can lease out to another user. So is there a way to scope what the contractor might do? Would we pay less than $5,000 for the assessment if we scope the assessment to just a safety assessment? Maybe council doesn't agree with that, but
I wouldn't expect that the cost would be considerably less. I think there's value in conducting the full assessment. The facility is quite small. It won't require significant amount of work. We do have an email that just came in a few minutes ago. The cost is closer to about $6,500, recognizing that I think it's needed to ensure safety. And the strategy is that we're leasing it currently for a nominal amount of about, $3,200. I think that a future lease would have to be better reflective of the true nature of the facility, maintenance and the like, and the cost for this assessment and future assessments. So whether we lease it to Snow Country or another group, we need to conduct the assessment to make sure that it's we have the plan forward. But I'm not sure that we're going to obtain, that we could spend less to determine safety versus everything else, if you will.
Good.
They all align.
I only push back because I want to make sure it's clear, you know, given our asset management plan and the state of our other facilities, we need to make sure that we're spending our money in our priorities. And this is difficult. So I'll look for comments from council on that exchange between myself and the CEO. Councillor Trim first, and then Councillor Olmsted.
Yes, I apologize for not knowing the answer to this, but the building assessment, is it being paid for by some sort of a grant, and this can be included in, it's going to be included in it? And if so, then I certainly agree that we should be doing the whole scope, the whole thing. And again, I apologize for not remembering the answer to that question.
CEO, can you confirm?
The building condition assessments, all as a whole, are being funded partially from the capital budget for 2025, but also modernization reserve, which is a grant we received from the provincial government to look at modernization. One is assets and whether or not we should have all these assets and the like. So yeah, it's partially grants, partially capital.
Good, thank you. Councillor Olmsted.
Yeah, that kind of submarines the question, or overtakes the question that I would have then, but I'll ask it anyway. Seeing as this is a net negative return, spending money for the assessment versus the intake of the lease, I do know that there are a number of contractors, and at least one or two general contractors, that are on the snow goers or snow countries board. One of them's a president, as a matter of fact. Would it be an option to lease it for, say, $1, have them take the entire building condition assessment upon themselves? So the township's not losing any money in that regard. Right now, we'd be losing whatever, $3,000 if we go ahead with, notwithstanding the grant.
Yeah, so the conversation with representatives from the Snow Country is, that was the original, one of the negotiation topics was the townships requiring the organization to do an assessment. And in the world of real estate, in leases and the like, it's usually the leaser who does the assessments, is what they've expressed to me. So I would be hesitant to think that they would be willing to do it the other way. I think we have an obligation to ensure that our facilities are safe, leased or not. So I think there's value in doing this, and generally the funds should be recoverable, if not in future years. I mean, we've been generating some revenue over the last 15 years. That should cover the cost for the assessment. Thanks.
Good. Worthwhile discussion. Thank you. I appreciate, there may be, and further to Councilor Olmsted's point, there may be other ways for a leasee to contribute work in kind, if that may be something that could be negotiated based on the building condition assessment. Yeah. Good. Councillor Moore?
Just after all that conversation, something popped in here. If we did propose to lease the building to the user group for $1 without doing a building assessment, are we guilty should something go wrong?
Well, and I think the current agreement puts us in a bad liable position. It does stipulate that we provide structural and liability insurance coverage presently. That's what the agreement says today. That's what we have in place. And we don't know the condition of the structural nature of the building. So yeah, I mean, in any case, I mean, that's a question to the lawyers, not so much myself, whether we're liable if we're leasing a building and what is our liability or risk around that. But I think we'd be better to know the answer before we lease it for longer term. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And that circles around to my initial thing. The right thing to do in order to make sure that we can assess the risk, that we can determine the future agreements, is to do this full assessment. I would just point out that we're going to have to make some decisions once we have all that information. And this conversation will circle back. Councillor Olmsted?
Yeah, just to be clear, what I said, or what I meant to say was that I agree that the building condition assessment had to be done. I was just asking if they could do it, and then we would lease the building to them at a net zero, but they would have to do it. I take back that question now, given what Councillor Trim had asked regarding the grant. Thank you.
Good. Thank you for that. Any other final questions on this one? It's good. It is a complex one, so thank you, CAO. With that, we'll call a question. All those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you, CAO. Good. Next is on to item 9.8, which is a discussion. Sorry, there's an initiative by the Local Authority Services, which is a poor name that doesn't describe this organization, but refer to it as LAS. It's an organization that has been created by AMO, and they are proposing a Joint Municipal Services Corporation analysis, a committee to analyze the consideration of a Joint Municipal Services Corporation. So this resolution refers to that. The recommendation is that the Council of Township Whitewater Region nominate our Manager of Public Works, Lane Claroux, to participate in the Municipal Staff Committee created by the Local Authority Services, LAS, or be assigned as the Whitewater Region liaison for a partnering member on the LAS Municipal Staff Committee to develop a business case for potentially establishing a joint municipal services corporation for water and wastewater. And if I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Moore and seconded by Councillor Olmsted. Good. CAO.
Yeah, thanks so much, and thanks for the introduction of the subject matter, because it is a little bit complex. But in any case, I'll start by saying that this is an examination, a business case. We are not committing to doing anything. There's no change in the service. The model we use stays the same for the time being. This is an opportunity presented to us, essentially from AMO, it's a not-for-profit arm of AMO, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, to examine alternatives to the model, the governance model for water and wastewater. So this is essentially just nominating a member of staff to sit on a committee to do the examination. I'll speak a little bit more. I could probably finish there maybe, but I'll keep presenting a little bit more. So LAS, the not-for-profit business service of AMO, they released a report of the expert panel back in January of this year. And this report is the culmination of a few things. One is they've been examining this for essentially all of 2024, and council who attended AMO in Ottawa 2024 AMO, the AMO and LAS alongside MFOA, Municipal Finance of Ontario Association, they were looking at exploring the creation of joint municipal service corporations at that point in time. So they held what was called an open house discussion on water and wastewater feasibility study, and the outcome of that is the report they published in January. I think it's attached to my report, if I recall correctly. So the expert panel on finance, economics, policy, legal, operations specialist, they examined the model and recommended further exploration through business case. And this is the next step, the business case. And what they're seeking is participation of up to 10 municipalities to a municipal staff committee, and our submission needs to be filed by March 31st, 2025. So in my analysis section of my report, I speak about why participating, what are the potential benefits. I speak to the advocacy and partnership. So advocacy, noting that our council did pass resolutions in the fall of 2023, winter, January 2024, relating to essentially requesting that the province examine our current situation around water and wastewater services, our rates and the like. We put together a task force last year, which is also some form of advocacy to examine this a greater deal. So the motion reads there's two bullets, which are separated by the term or, not and or, it's or. So we are looking to work. I've been communicating with CAO David Unraw from the City of Pembroke and CAO Dean Sorial to see whether or not we each send a staff member to sit on the committee, or we just send one member that would serve as a committee member, and we would liaison to show maybe as a business case option the three municipalities together. Now, we could send ours by ourselves. We're certainly allowed to do that, and it appears as though that might be the preferred option, but the motion reads either or. So we have been communicating with the City of Pembroke, that is with the CAOs from City of Pembroke and the Laurentian Valley. They will be going to their councils mid-March, and I had suggested that I bring this to our council first, because I think we need to examine this, whether they're in it or they're not. I think we need to submit our submission to LES. So the impact on staffing, so at this point in time, LES has said that the member on the committee would have to attend 6 meetings in 2025, so call it an hour and a half each. We're probably in a round of 9 hours of staff time, so not a substantial amount. There will be some collection of information, probably from our treasurer and other supporting staff, so there'll be some small impacts, but it's more collection of data and attending a few meetings, but we could certainly fit it in our work plan. And certainly with our manager having been away for a few weeks, I haven't really confirmed that, but he has indicated that he wished that he be nominated to the committee, which is great. Around the strategic plan, departmental work plan, so just skipping over the strategic plan, strategic direction, just the task force final report did enumerate 3 different items. One is to explore tendering the operations of water wastewater systems, explore tendering or sharing of services, operations staff with other municipalities, and explore moving to operations in-house for water and wastewater services. So this business case, while it doesn't exactly align to these 3 items, also supports another model of governance for the water wastewater that needs to be explored. So it's a great opportunity. Essentially no charge, no fees other than staff time. So the expected delivery, I think, is in 2027. It somewhat aligns with our current contracts, somewhat, not great, but in any case, the information will be pertinent at that time. So staff are seeking council's concurrence on this matter, and glad to respond to any questions that might arise. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, CAO. I will add, just from a background perspective on the case, when we advocated to AMO about our circumstances here and the affordability of our current system, AMO's reaction was to task LAS with this initial analysis. So this is a direct result of the advocacy, the resolutions that were put forth by our council, and the work that staff has been doing in the background with AMO staff and LAS staff. So it's great to see an organization, a provincial organization like this, respond and look at alternatives for our specific case, as well as I expect many others. In our delegation at Roma, what we had with Ministry of Infrastructure, we put it to them that LAS was working on this initiative, had asked us to participate. They're very familiar with our circumstance. We've spoken to them more than once about our wastewater affordability. And their recommendation from their key staff was, yes, you should consider this for participation. This is something that you need to explore. So we took that feedback to heart as part of this report back to council. Good. With that background, I will then go to the mover, which is Councillor Moore, for any comments, questions, thoughts.
I have two. One, is Lane willing to step into this position? And two, will this be just a county, inside this county initiative, or will this spill out onto our neighbors and neighboring counties?
Yeah, so Lane has confirmed, I did confirm with Manager Cleroux while he was away. But secondly, yeah, the program's being offered to any municipality in Ontario, so I would expect that other municipalities in Ontario will submit resolutions to be part of the program, yeah.
Okay, because if we're going to start losing staff time because he's gone to other areas for meetings, then at some point then maybe Deanna or someone may have to pick up some of his workload, that's all.
Yeah, noted, thanks.
Good, and our seconder was Councillor Olmsted.
Thank you. I think this is a tremendous opportunity in the evolution of what we've gone through the last few years and what the rest of the province is facing over the next 10, 15, 20 years of replacing some of these aging facilities. So I think this is a great first step. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from any other member of council? So I see Councillor Trim.
Yes, just a comment. Looking at this, I guess I can see why Laurentian Valley would be interested in participating, even though they don't have a water or sewer plant. But I'm surprised that Renfrew and Arnprior aren't anxious to be part of this too. And I could say Petawawa also. And anyone else actually that has these facilities. So I'm wondering why there isn't a bigger groundswell of support here for us. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good question. The CAO, maybe you can explain the regional approach.
Yeah, so I in advance of the preparation of this report, I did not connect with all of the CAOs in Renfrew County, to be clear. So I know David sits on the LAS board, so he's been bringing this information to my attention to make sure that I'm tracking on behalf of the Whitewater region. And the interesting dynamic between the city of Pembroke and Whitewater region is the city of Pembroke has in-house water wastewater distribution and operations. So it provides two different dynamics where we use Aqua as a contractor to do that work. So combining us as a case study, a business case study, proves advantageous to LAS to have the different models, if you will. So that's really why we are sort of connecting with the city of Pembroke. And LV being, they are serviced by City of Pembroke. There's some value in having them participate in the process as well. I'm not sure, would you add anything else to that, Mayor Nicholson?
I know just from speaking to other mayors that there are other municipalities in Renfrew County making application to this. Yes, so there's only 10 spots. Who they'll allocate those spots to, I don't expect that Renfrew County will get a bunch. And therefore the regional approach, like the three of us coming together as one applicant, will probably increase our chances of being selected. So, but you're right, this isn't unique to Whitewater. Renfrew has similar affordability issues, BV has similar affordability issues, and Arnprior has significant challenges keeping up with its growth. Different types of problems, but all around affordability. Good. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Good. Are you sure, Manager Cleroux, that this is something you want to take on?
Yeah, it's definitely an initiative, good initiative for the users of the water system. Council staff spent a lot of time over the years, last couple of years, between task force and trying to find the affordability. I think this is one other step that we can take.
Excellent. Okay, good. He is clearly on board. So if there's no other questions or comments, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. Excellent. Next item on the agenda is notices of motion. Is there any notices that members of council would like to provide for next council meeting? Good, I see none. And we had talked about an update to previous notices of motion. I just triggered on that.
Yeah, the Clerk Miller did indicate in our first meeting of January that there were two, I believe, outstanding notices of motion that we're continuing to work through. One, I think, was related to transportation, and the other one was relating to fire basic life support. So we're tracking them. We're hopeful to get something to council in the near future.
Perfect. Good. Sorry, and I just don't want to lose that as an update each time we come to the item. Good. Next is correspondence. And we have a number of items requiring direction. So there's 5 items that we'll go through here that require direction. The first one has to do with deposit return program, and this is a deposit on essentially, think of it in terms of, we have a deposit program on beer cans. This would be one on pop cans in a general sense. So the resolution, the recommendation in front of us is that the Council Township Whitewater Region support the letter dated September 20th, 2024 by the town of Bradford West Willenbury regarding the Ontario Deposit Return Program, and further that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, the Minister of Finance, the Association of Municipalities, and the local MPP in all Ontario municipalities. So I left out in the resolution, I've left out the names of those ministers, only because that hasn't been confirmed since the election. And as you can see, this is a resolution in support of another municipality's proposal. So with that, in order to enable any discussion on this matter, I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Trim has moved it. Is there anyone who would like to second it? Councillor Moore? Good. And I think the CAO is going to give us a brief, or was I?
I believe you had indicated you would, Mayor Nicholson.
Thank you. Hot potato. Well, my brief summary was the introduction. So part of this is to do the exact, not the exact, but similar program as they do with alcoholic beverage containers, is to initiate a deposit that you would pay at the store for the item and then be able to return the item into recycling to collect back that deposit. And that would just encourage more of circular use of other drinking beverage containers. Good. I'm going to go back to my mover, which is Councillor Trim. Is there anything that you want to add to the discussion? You're good? And Councillor Moore?
Yeah, I do believe that Quebec used to have this type of a program. I don't know if they still do, but when I worked at the mine many years ago, I worked with some people from Quebec, and they saved their pop cans and they took them somewhere and got money for them. I can't remember now where they took them, but there was a program over there, and I don't know if it's still going, but with the recycling program changing, maybe this is something worthwhile looking into. If we can recoup any money from it, it'd be bonus.
Perfect. Is there any other questions? Or maybe I'll hold questions from council. I'm looking at Superintendent Nicholson, and she has some experience with our waste and recycling. So maybe, do you want to offer any comment for council to consider as part of this resolution?
Yeah, I'm originally from a province that has, BC, that has a deposit system, and their recycling rates are dramatically higher than they are in Ontario. And I funded my childhood taking back 25 pop bottles. It encourages a significant people to chase down those bottles because they're worth something. It has it can increase the ultimate collection rates that make it for recycling, which ultimately means less going into our landfill. It's
excellent. Good. Thank you for that. And does that trigger any other questions or comments from council? Councillor Tabbert.
I don't get this. Like, are you talking like Coke cans and, I mean, they're all recyclable.
Yes. The difference being it's a non-paid for, you're recycling in order to avoid putting it in your garbage out of the goodwill. This would be, you'd return it to a recycling plant and you'd get your deposit back on the can, just the same as you would a beer can.
Didn't we do that years ago?
I don't know. I didn't live here years
Not
ago.
with cans, bottles, but not with cans.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But Quebec did cans.
Okay, I was gonna say, I thought I did that as a kid. Okay, so it's cans now now do the bottles still go back for money? No. Nothing. Okay, so,
They don't do bottles anymore, and the ones they do go into recycle. They don't clean them and reuse them.
even the beer bottles?
Okay,
No, beer, no, that's different. That's alcohol.
Oh, okay, okay.
You don't have to worry about anything in them.
good. So just because, we've gone back and forth on this one. Alcoholic containers, all of them, you pay a deposit, you take it back, you get your deposit back, or somebody gets the deposit back, whoever takes it back. They're proposing to take that model that's used for alcoholic containers and apply it in the same sense to non-alcoholic beverages. Yes.
So we're putting more expense onto a business person then who is selling these
That's right.
non-alcoholic beverages.
Just right now, you pay the deposit. When you buy an alcohol beverage, the business collects that deposit and puts it into the system. Now they'd be doing that not just for alcoholic, they'd be doing it for other types of beverages. And then you'd get the money back, yes.
So who is going to pay, where would these, I mean, right now we have a hard time returning our alcoholic beverages. People complain about, how few there are in our area alone. So how will this affect, who's going to be holding these non-alcoholic recycling depots?
And that type of implementation to answer those questions would have to be part of the rollout, but we're asking in this resolution for them to consider amending the policy to include it and examine those kinds of options. How would it actually be implemented? Isn't part of the resolution right now, but it would have to follow if they wanted to examine it.
So where does it say in here that we're asking them to look into this and not that we agree to this? Endorses the expansion of the Ontario deposit return to include. And it says it will enhance our environmental stewardship, but it doesn't say anywhere in here who will be responsible for these depots. I mean, if it's our business people who have to do the recycling, accepting it, they're gonna have to have more space. So I'm not sure who's going to operate these depots and if it's going to make sense for our residents right now who have a hard time with the alcoholic ones already.
Perfect. So, and those are reservations that, excellent questions. So I think it's good for you to air them. The comment I'll just refer back is that the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks highlighted in June 2023, so the provincial government, that they are considering the adoption of a deposit and return system for non-alcoholic beverages in order to further promote recycling, reduce litter, and encourage sustainable practices amongst consumers. So the how of that, you're right, there's a lot of questions surrounding that, but this endorsement is to say, yes, we would like you to further examine this and consider it for implementation, whether or not, without the details of how it might be implemented this time.
The government could technically put this forward and it would be up to us, our business people, to deal with the fallout if we agree to this.
Exactly. Not if we don't have the option to agree or not to agree.
But if we're endorsing this, then we're agreeing to it.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Good. Any other? Yes, Councillor Trim.
Yes, I suspect that as with other refundable payback, like tires, for instance, is another one where you can return the tires. Or the alcoholic containers. The vendor, whoever is receiving it, is compensated, and that's part of the tire fee, for instance, that you pay when you buy new tires. So the person collecting the tires is compensated for doing that. So I don't think there would be an expectation that the businesses do this for nothing. But that's just me thinking about past practices. But that's how I expect it would be done. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good. Is there any other questions or comments on this? Good. With that, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Good. And it carries 4-2. Excellent. Next item on the agenda is number B, the Robbie Dean Center, and this is a letter of support. The recommendation that the Council of Township of Whitewater Region support the County of Renfrew's resolution regarding the Robbie Dean Family Counseling Center, seeking funding from the Minister of Health to expand their vital mental health services in Renfrew County, and further that this resolution be forwarded to the MP, to our MPP, and all municipalities in Ontario. So a mover and a seconder, please. So moved by Councillor Tabbert, seconded by Councillor Trim. Good. The letter is self-explanatory, so I will open it up for comments at this point in time. Councillor Tabbert.
Our Robbie Dean Center here has done wonderful things for for residents in all of Renfrew County. So I see no problem in supporting this resolution. Thank you.
Perfect. And Councillor Trim?
Yes, I certainly agree with Councillor Tabbert. I think the Robbie Dean Centre can be credited for the reduction of, as we see in a later report from the Chief Medical Officer of Health, that there's a reduction in the opioid deaths. And I'm thinking that the centres like this, agencies like this, are responsible for that happening, and certainly I support it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Perfect. Any other comments from members of council? Excellent. We'll call for the vote. All those in favor? And it's carried, unanimous. Next item is to request the increase in the tile drain amount. And I'll just remind, the province sets a limit on the amount that a property owner can apply for a tile drain. It's basically a loan registered against their property. I don't know what the current limit is, 100,000? Treasurer?
It's 50,000.
It's currently 50,000, and this is a resolution to increase that amount that would be accessible by our property owners. So the recommendation before us is the Council of the Township Whitewater Region support the motion from the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe requesting that the province, through the Minister of Agricultural, Food and Rural Affairs, consider increasing the maximum annual tile drain loan limit to a minimum of $250,000, and further that the council, I'm just going to reword this, and that council forward a copy of this motion to the, I'm going to cross out the name, to the Minister of Agricultural, Food and Rural Affairs, the Association of Municipalities, the Rural Ontario Municipality Association, and all Ontario municipalities. And I'm just going to make a note, there will be a friendly amendment to this because the province has separated the Minister of Agricultural, Food and Rural Affairs into two different ministries, so you'll have to reflect that in the final resolution, whether it passes or not. A mover and a seconder, please. So moved by Councillor Tabbert, seconded by Councillor Moore. Good, and again, self-explanatory, I think, given the attached document. So I'll open it up to Councillor Tabbert for comments or questions first.
We're increasing the amount from 100,000 by Adelaide to 250,000 at our own discretion.
From 50,000 to 250,000, but the province is the one that controls the limit, so we're making the recommendation for them to consider increasing that loan amount.
But that's what I'm saying, our municipalities, because Adelaide's asking for 100.
That's good. Can you just highlight where you've seen that, please?
Yeah, now therefore the Council of the Township of Adelaide and Metcalfe requests that the province through the Ministry of Agriculture consider increasing the maximum annual tile loan to a minimum of 100,000.
If I could clarify.
And we're putting it to a minimum of 250,000.
Yes, sorry, CAO, please.
So there's two resolutions. One is from Frontenac, which is the $250,000. And the one from Adelaide Metcalfe is to increase to $100,000. So the one from Frontenac is from January this year, and the one from Adelaide is from March of last year. So if we could, I think we would suggest that we go with the higher limit to support our agricultural industry. So back to you, Mayor. So if the resolution could stand at $250,000. Thanks.
Sorry, see, and I'm just going to clean up the resolution just for, because it does say support the motion from Adelaide, Metcalf. If we just, from the motions from the two townships, Frontenac and Adelaide, and request that the province increase the tile drain limit to 250,000, that puts the resolution in support of the two attaching documents. Is that okay, clerk?
As long as you get a
Yeah. So Councillor Tabbert and Councillor Moore, you're okay with that as a friendly amendment?
Yes.
Excellent, good. If there is a concern with the amount, I'll take an amendment to the motion if there's a change to that. Good, so back to the mover. Any additional comments or questions?
No.
Good. And a seconder, Councillor Moore, any comments or questions?
Just that I think this is probably about time with costs going up. I'm sure there might be more tile drains done if there was more money involved and it'd make it more affordable. Thanks.
Good. Any other members of council? Councillor Olmsted?
Yeah, perhaps we can have the treasurer explain how tile drain loans work, just for listeners and council.
Perfect. Treasurer, if you could offer that, and any insights that you might have that council should consider as part of this resolution, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And that was an extra point I was going to bring forward. So right now on the books, we have 6 tile drain loans that are actually currently at the end of 2024. So what happens is the landowner comes and gets a quote or a costing for the actual installation of tile drain into their fields. They then come and request a loan through the township as the governing authority, because we pass a bylaw to allow us to borrow on their behalf. If council is approving of that loan amount, we then pass that information off, and a bylaw is passed and sent off to Agriculture and Food. They then issue us a check in the amount of the loan. We then take that amount of money and disperse it to the landowner. We're a flow through for that side. On the collection side, we actually add it to the property taxes. So every time the final taxation is calculated, it is included for the next 10 years. It's a 10-year span, and I believe the interest rate is set at 6%. So they get that over the next years until it's paid off. Then once it's paid off, it's gone. If property is to sell in amongst the time while that is still gone, the new owner, it's still a registered lien technically on the property, same as property tax, and is required to be paid back. So we are still secured in that way to receive that money back. It's just another way where a property owner doesn't need to have specific assets to get a loan, say from the bank. The farm itself and the property itself is technically what's being borrowed against. So the property itself is what secures that loan. It's a lien through that side. And for us, in order to borrow that amount of money, we pass bylaws in order to, I believe it's $250,000 is our maximum per bylaw. So every time we get to the limit of that bylaw as a whole, we have to repass a new bylaw in order to then start borrowing against it again. Because the 250 allows us to do the 5 $50,000 loans. Typically, they're not that size, but the newest one we just had go on our books, which was a resolution last year, was for $50,000 because that is the cost of these systems to do a very small acreage of field. So I am in support of doing this increase because it does not affect our annual payment limit for debt. I want to note that. It's actually taken off whenever the FIR is done, so they don't take that into account because it is a receivable back. So the effect on us is limited. It's a benefit to the actual taxpayer in order to have that other opportunity to, one, improve their property and continue the business of agriculture, and to make use of maybe unusable land that would have been there before. Thank you.
Good, and I'll just add to the treasurer's comment, the feedback I've had from the farming community is that the interest rate, which was mentioned at 6% and is set by the province, may be higher than they could secure locally, but the application process is as simple as filling out a form because it's registered against your title. it is much more simple to get a tile drain loan through the municipality than it would be through another lender. So just a consideration in terms of the feedback I've gotten from the public. So with that, I'm just going to go back to Councillor Olmsted to see if any follow-up questions or comments.
No, I thank the treasurer, as I knew he'd probably know every detail about that loan, and he does. Thank you.
And I recognize Councillor Trim.
Yes, I think I missed a bit of that, Mr. Mayor, through to the treasurer again. So the application is made, and the $50,000 comes from the province, and we give it to the applicant. And then we collect $50,000 over time for 10 years from plus interest from the applicant. Do we remit that back to the province?
We do.
Oh, okay.
So
I missed that part.
Sorry. So yeah, it's a full flow-through system where we are just the shepherds of the money. We don't see a benefit to it. It's an extra service we can provide through the ministry.
Okay.
And like I said, the security part on our side is security is we have the ability to make it a lien portion because it's part of their property taxes. So that's what guarantees their piece that they're able to get their money back. The province is not worried about receiving that funds back because we are the ability to make it a secured lien.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good. Thank you. Any other comments or questions from members of council? Excellent. With that, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please. And it's carried unanimously. And with that, we're just going to take again a 5-minute recess for a bio break. If you can be seated again at 3:33. And welcome back to the Township of Whitewater Region's regular council meeting for Wednesday, March 5th. We'll call ourselves back to order here at 3:32 p.m. And we're just finishing off item 11, item number D, which is the paid plasma-free zone, a resolution put forward by the City of Toronto and the Township of Brudenell, Lindock, and Raglan. So this is just in related to their proposal. The recommendation before the council is that the Council of Township Whitewater Region support the City of Toronto's resolution declaring Toronto a paid plasma-free zone, and that further that this resolution be forwarded to Canadian Blood Services, Minister of Health, the MPP, and all municipalities in Ontario. Do I have a mover and a seconder?
That's that.
Okay, I see no mover. The item will no longer be discussed. Thank you. The next item is a draft water pit license drafted by our planner. Is that correct?
Yes.
Excellent. And the recommendation is that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region direct staff to issue the response letter regarding the Aggregate Resource Act license application 626654. And I'm looking for a mover and a seconder, please, so we can get it on the table. So Councillor Tabbert and Councillor Trim. And is staff going to discuss this? Yes, planner, floor is yours.
Hi there. On February 7th, the township staff received a letter from Gary McLaren, who was representing Jeffrey Lavley in his application to the provincial government for to open up a new pit in Beachburg that would be below water. So I've drafted a letter in response. I have not done a deep review of all of the documentation yet, but this letter represents a review of the application as it relates to the planning documents that we often use. I'm not going to, unless you want me to go into great detail about what the contents of the letter. Basically, it just outlines what the PPS states, which is that we should be protecting aggregate resources and developing them where appropriate in a fashion that minimizes social, economic, and environmental impacts. And that once established, we should protect that resource we should allow it to continue to be extracted. However, it does require for progressive and final restoration. The county official plan requires that the lands in question be rezoned. So at the moment, the lands in question are zoned as what's called industrial extractive reserve, sand and gravel. So it needs to be taken out of the reserve and just put into an industrial extractive industrial zone. It outlines what should be considered when dealing with that zoning amendment. It also outlines a series of an area of influence of 300 meters where studies should be conducted. It also requires that the provincial environmental regulations are complied. Yes, and then the township zoning bylaw requires that the new pits that any new pit be rezoned to environmental or extractive industrial, I should say. That would require a zoning amendment application. There's also a separation distance, which requires a certain setback from sensitive land uses. So we may need to do, if the applicant wants to build within that zone, we will need to bring an application to council to hear that. The letter also outlines just some of the requirements for the extractive zone. And then it finishes off by highlighting the next steps to the applicant. So the next steps would be to file an application for a zoning amendment. I've outlined several studies that will be required in order to deem the application incomplete. So that includes an environmental impact assessment, hydrology, a hydrogeological study, noise impact study, vibration impact study, dust and air quality impact study, traffic impact study, as well as an archaeological stage 1 and 2. I also noted that that a site plan control may be required, but this is unlikely. However, due to our bylaw, the bylaw does allow for us to require that. But seeing as the application is going to be reviewed more intensively by the provincial government, we may not require site plan review. And yes, and then I just end the letter by indicating that I've made every effort to be as accurate as possible, and that more information may be required, and to keep in touch. So I just for the public to be aware, there is going to be a public event held in Beachburg tomorrow at 6 p.m. That's being put on by the proponent. It is an engagement session that they are putting on. So if you have any comments or questions, you're more than welcome to attend that information session. And that's tomorrow at the Beachburg Community Hall at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Excellent, thank you, Planner. And with that, I'll go back to the mover, Councillor Tabbert. Do you have any questions or comments?
I'd like to say yes, but I can't because I'm not sure I understand what all this is about. I haven't read this over yet. But I was advised by a resident about the meeting tomorrow night, so I was planning on attending the meeting. But I need more time to review this. Unfortunately, I had computer problems, so I couldn't get into mine. So, yeah, I don't know.
Perfect. And Councillor Trim, seconder.
I too plan to attend the meeting, and I do respect the recommendation from our planner. And so I don't know what we need to do today before that meeting tomorrow. That's what I...
From my understanding, CAO might be better equipped to
If I
answer
could
that
just
one.
provide some more details. So the owner of the property is using a consulting firm, Mr. McLaren, to submit an application to the Ministry of Natural Resources to open a new pit. That's what's happening. Owner applying to the Ministry of Natural Resources to open a pit. The Ministry of Natural Resources are the holders of the licenses of pits. So the Ministry of Natural Resources requires an owner to consult with the public and consult with the municipality. So the meeting tomorrow is that consultation with the public, and they've also circulated us a package to consult with the township. So the township has policies, like the official plan, the zoning bylaw. It establishes what is or what is not allowed. The property is in a zone that allows for aggregate extraction. It allows for this use, but there's a process to get the local approvals, our approvals. And what Alex has highlighted is a zoning amendment, which will come back to council at a later time. Because it's in a reserve zone, we'll remove the reserve zone. To support that zoning, they will have to submit certain studies to make sure the impacts on neighbors are mitigated or addressed, and the like. So at this point, we are informing the ministry, essentially, through the consultant, that they need to apply to the township for approvals. So the consultant, the owner, is going to take our information, take all of the information he hears at the public meeting or any written correspondence, put it in a package and give it to the Ministry of Natural Resources, and then they're going to assess that information and apply certain requirements and restrictions before they issue their license back to the owner. So we tracking to some degree. So in the package, there's a letter from the Ministry of Natural Resources, their aggregate sections, who've received the package from the owner, and they're processing it too. So one of their steps is consultation, township, and public, and they're doing that right now. So that'll all get back to the owner, ministry, and then the consultant who's representing Mr. Lavallee, he's already connected with Alex to understand our process, to understand the zoning amendment, to understand the requirements, and they are not opposed to any of it to any degree at this point in time. They're prepared to file a zoning amendment. They're prepared to do the approval process, like the municipal approval process. So subject to any ministry prohibition. Right now, it's aligning itself to be permitted, subject to mitigation measures to be addressed on the property. So at this point, the township, we have policies, like they already exist, they're already adopted by our council. Unless we're seeking to change our policies, which I would caution to some degree, the letter, in my view, is appropriate at this point in time in the consultation process. Thanks.
Good. And I'll come back, Councillor Tabbert. Councillor Trim, anything else you want to follow up?
No, that's exactly what I wanted to hear, and I'm clear on that. I understand it. So, no.
Perfect. So just to confirm from a public perspective, the resolution would authorize our planner to sign this letter to return back to the consultant being hired for the application. So we are just basically making sure that we acknowledge and direct staff to respond in this manner. Perfect. And I'll come back to Councillor Tabbert.
Thank you. That cleared it up really well for me. My only concern is, and I might have to go and talk to somebody else about this, but if it's just coming out of reserve, so we've already zoned it this, and he can do all this work, why do we have to have all this other stuff if it's just coming off of reserve? I don't understand that part. So I'm wondering if I should talk to Alex, or if it can be explained here as to why it just doesn't come off reserve.
AO, do you want to try, or planner?
Yeah,
I can take that.
I could. I mean, the reality is that to move it from reserve to extraction, to allow it, it is common that we require certain things. One is, in this case, the extraction is below the water table. That's the proposal before us. But we want to make sure the corporation, the township, for our residents, that will not impact neighboring wells. So the proponent will submit these documents to make sure that we're protecting the interest of the township and the interest of the residents. So that's really why we have this reserve holding, like reserve zoning presently. In any case, we could discuss more, or Alex could provide some more input. Yeah.
I just wanted to add that a lot of the studies that I'm requiring, about just over half of them have already been completed by the proponent in their application process to the province. And when I spoke with the applicant's agent, the proponent's agent, and mentioned the additional studies, he did not seem surprised. So I believe that what we're requiring here is pretty par for the course.
Councillor Tabbert.
I'm not saying that we're wrong on what we're asking for. I just wanted to explain, because if we've already approved this zoning and we just said, but we're just going to reserve it for later, I'm not sure why we have to, like, wouldn't all this have been done before the zoning was approved and put into reserve?
Well,
No.
No, so for clarity, the protection of the resource, the aggregate is a resource, a non-renewable resource. It is actually identified by the province to say this area of your township has a resource that we need to protect. In the provincial interest, they're protecting it. We've placed, therefore it's a reserve, they're reserving it, and now we are taking it out of reserve to extract it.
Okay, yes. I understand. Perfect. Thank you so much.
And again, worthwhile discussion, because there are members of the public that would have the same questions. So thank you, Councillor Tabbert, CAO, the planner. It's important to go through this stuff, so we appreciate it. Excellent. Other questions? Councillor Moore.
Two things. One, will this new driveway be exit and enter on the county road, I trust, rather than our township road? And two, I see under next steps, this area, depending on how deep they go, this area is full of veins of water which feed the Beachburg water plant. So at what point do these studies take in perhaps a vibration impact that may affect our water flow?
Excellent. Both good questions, and I'm going to turn it over to the planner. So the access to public roads, and the second is just the impact on the potential water supply.
Yes, so the property is only accessed from Beachburg Road, so it would be, the access would have to be off Beachburg Road. And then in terms of, I have requested for a vibration study. So hopefully, and proponent has already conducted a hydrogeological study. So I haven't looked at all the details of that study yet, but those types of, like precisely what you're highlighting there is kind of information that we're going to be looking for. And then if that is, if there's a negative outcome according to the study, then we'll have to either put in some mitigative measures or address it with the applicant to see what they propose to deal with that problem.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for the question. Any other comments or questions on this application? Good. I just have one, just these studies that we're asking for, and you've said that you've already indicated that some of them are already being asked for by the Ministry of Natural Resources. Those that are unique to us, we have the authority to scope them based on the circumstances and,
Yes.
and the location, and that scoping is done at your level, the CEO's level, or does it come back to council?
I'll defer to the CEO for that question.
You're referring to the scoping of the reports?
Scoping of the studies.
Yeah, it would be at the discretion of the planners, recognizing the neighboring constraints, yes.
Excellent. Okay, good. Any final questions from council? Okay, I see none. And just to remind people, the recommendation is that we're directing staff to issue this response letter as presented in the package. So I will call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, planner.
Thank you.
That's a good explanation one. Excellent. We have two other items in paragraph 11 of our agenda. They're information items. The first is the Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Morgenstern's report to the board and report to the public, and it is attached. And the second item is the draft sewer use bylaw request for comments. And this was distributed to council even before the agenda item. For your information, our superintendent, environmental superintendent, has issued this out to sewer users for their comments. So that's just a public recognition of that in the information items. Did you want to add anything, Manager of Public Works?
I also want to add that the letter was circulated to all businesses, not all users.
Thank you for clarifying that. Is there any questions on those two information items? If not, we're not going to discuss them any longer. Okay, excellent. Next is 12 announcements, and we'll go around the horn. I'll start with the Deputy Mayor. If there's any announcements you'd like to make.
I would have nothing at this time, thank you.
Perfect. And Councillor Tabbert. I'm going to let Councillor Olmsted go first, and then he can take them from you. Okay, Councillor Olmsted.
Well, I have a whole laundry list, but I'm going to reserve it for the next meeting. Thank you.
Excellent. Councillor Tabbert.
Yes, there's breakfast with the Beachburg firefighters at St. Andrew's Church on Saturday the 15th.
8 to 1.
8 to 1.
Brunch then. No, I don't know. I'm just joking. Good. Anything else, Councillor Tabbert? No. Good. And then with that, I'll go to, how did I screw this up? Councillor Olmsted already said no. Councillor Moore.
No, she was going to talk about that. And I do have another meeting coming up with Horton on roads. And I'm not sure who all will be sitting in on that. And it's a busy month.
Okay. And Councillor Trim. Excellent. And I just... Councillor Tabbert has another one, please. While I'm.
It's just
Yeah.
the seniors health fair is on Thursday at the Cobden. Yes, at the Cobden Ag Hall. I think. Is that the Egg Hole, right?
Yes.
Yes. So I just thought I'd just remind people about that. It's from 10:30 till 3. And from what I understand, you don't have to go for the whole day. You can just slip in and slip out as you need. There is an agenda. I haven't seen it, but there is an agenda as well.
Excellent, thank you. And I'll just add to two other ones. 6th of March is International Women's Day celebration. I believe we have council member attending with the Chamber of Commerce. So thank you, Councillor Tabbert, for March 7th, sorry. Thank you for the correction. Representing council at the Chamber of Commerce event. And 7th of March as well, there is a Member of Parliament town hall. So our MP is hosting a town hall with Larry Brock. He is the Member of Parliament for Brantford Brant and the Shadow Minister for Justice. So if you're looking for some more information, there is a town hall and available, and you can get that information from the MP's office on the 7th of March. Good. With that, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is bylaws. There are 5 bylaws listed on the agenda, plus our confirmatory bylaw. So the recommendation is, be it resolved that the bylaws listed on the March 5th, 2025 agenda be taken as read and passed. A mover and a seconder. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Olmsted. Is there any final comments, questions that members of council want to raise on any of those bylaws listed at paragraph 13? Okay, I see none. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And they are carried. Excellent. And in recognition of the fact that we do have one closed item for a closed session, we are reaching our time limit. So I will ask for a motion from the floor to extend the meeting until 4:30. And that is the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Trim. There's no debate, so I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. And with that, the recommendation before us for this closed session is that the Council of the Township Whitewater Region move into closed session at 3:55 p.m. as permitted in Section 9 of the procedural bylaw for a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, in brackets, the potential sale of property, with staff remaining in the room. A mover and a seconder, please. So moved by Councillor Olmsted, seconded by Councillor Trim. All those in favor? And it's carried.